Have you ever sat on the edge of your bed at 3 a.m., heart racing, replaying a conversation that hasn't happened yet? Maybe it's a job interview, a difficult phone call with someone you love, or standing in front of a room full of people who will decide whether you're good enough. You've rehearsed every word. You've imagined the best outcome and the worst one. You've played through possibilities until your mind feels exhausted before your body has even gotten moving. I want to ask you something honest. How much of that rehearsal was actually helping, and how much of it was just anxiety in disguise? Because there's a difference between what we call mental rehearsal and what most of us are doing when we lie awake worrying. One is building skill, the other is building fear. And knowing the difference changes everything about how you prepare for life's important moments. Mental rehearsal, sometimes called visualization, sometimes mental practice, is not just an exercise for athletes and performers. It's one of the most underutilized tools we have for shaping who we become in critical moments. But it works only when done correctly. Most people use it wrong, which means they're actually undermining themselves without realizing it. Let me give you a story that will make this clear. In 1998, a team of researchers at the University of Chicago conducted an experiment that has since become famous in sports psychology circles. They divided basketball players into 3 groups. One group spent time every day practicing free throws physically, actually shooting them on the court. Another group was told not to practice at all for 21 days. The third group stayed home during those same 21 days and spent their time visualizing themselves making perfect free throws. They measured results carefully. The players who practiced physically improved by 24%. The ones who did nothing declined slightly, as you'd expect. But the visualization group, they also improved by nearly 23%. Not significantly less than physical practice, not at all. Nearly identical. This wasn't just a basketball study either. Other researchers replicated similar findings with piano players, musicians, athletes across every sport I can think of, even surgeons learning new techniques. The brain doesn't distinguish between vividly imagined execution and actual execution the way we'd expect it to. Neural pathways activate whether you're physically performing or mentally rehearsing. That's why mental rehearsal works. But here's where most people get stuck. And this is the part one want you really pay attention to. Visualization alone won't save you from a bad performance. The brain fires in response to what you imagine, but if you're imagining yourself failing, even if you think you're preparing for failure by running through worst-case scenarios, you're actually training your nervous system to expect and rehearse failure. This is why so many people who visualize before important moments feel worse afterward instead of better. They've been using the tool backward. What I'm going to walk you through now isn't about positive thinking or wishful thinking. It's a specific, research-backed method of mental rehearsal that has nothing to do with optimism and everything to do with building actual competence in your mind before you ever step into a real situation. And it works whether you're preparing for a presentation, a difficult conversation, an athletic competition, or even just walking into a room full of strangers at a party where everyone seems to already know each other. The first piece I want you to understand is this. Mental rehearsal needs the same conditions as physical practice. You can't just sit down and vaguely hope for better results. You need specificity. The more specific, the more effective. Vague visualization is almost useless. It's like trying to learn a song by humming the general melody without ever learning the notes. When you're mentally rehearsing something important, start with context. Where are you? What are your surroundings? What time of day is it? These details matter because they activate different neural pathways than abstract thought alone. The brain responds more fully when you anchor your visualization in a concrete sensory experience. Then move to the specific actions you'll take. Not just the outcome, the process. If you're rehearsing a presentation, don't just imagine yourself standing up there successfully. Imagine walking to that podium. Feel the weight of your notes in your hands. Hear your own voice when you start speaking. Notice where you'll stand, what you'll do with your hands, how you'll make eye contact. Here's something counterintuitive. Mental rehearsal works best when it includes small mistakes and the recovery from them. Not because you're preparing yourself to fail, but because in reality, nothing goes perfectly every time. Not even for world-class professionals who've spent thousands of hours honing their craft. When you rehearse only perfect execution, your mind has no script ready when something unexpected happens. The first hiccup catches you off guard and derails everything that follows. When you include the stumble in your mental rehearsal, when you practice yourself recovering from it gracefully, you build confidence that doesn't depend on perfection. You've already rehearsed the version of events where things didn't go exactly as planned, and you know how you'll respond to it. This is actually one of the most powerful aspects of mental rehearsal. Building resilience for imperfect moments, not just competence for perfect ones. Now I want to address something that many people struggle with when trying this for the first time. Visualization isn't really a skill everyone has naturally. Some people can close their eyes and see vivid scenes clearly. Those are called hyperphantasics. Others see almost nothing at all. They're called aphantasics. If you're in the second group, don't worry about it. Mental rehearsal still works for you. You just use different sensory channels to achieve similar results. If visual imagery doesn't work for you strongly, try auditory rehearsal. Imagine hearing your own voice speaking clearly and confidently during that difficult conversation or presentation. Or kinesthetic. Feel what it would be like in your body. The weight of a golf club in your hands, the position of your fingers on piano keys before playing a piece. Whatever sensory channel feels most vivid to you is the one you should lean into heavily. The research actually shows that multisensory rehearsal beats single-channel rehearsal every time. But even a single strong channel gives you measurable benefits over no rehearsal at all. There's also something called implementation intention, a fancy term for what psychologists call if-then planning. This is where you mentally rehearse not just the ideal scenario, but specific scenarios that might go wrong and how you'll handle each one. If my mind goes blank during the presentation, I will pause and take a breath before continuing with my second point. If someone asks me a question I don't know the answer to, I will acknowledge it honestly and offer to follow up. You've rehearsed these moments mentally. They're not surprises when they happen. They're just variations of something you've already practiced in your head. I want to address one more thing that often gets overlooked. Timing matters with mental rehearsal. You don't need hours of visualization before a big event. The research consistently shows that 10 to 20 minutes is sufficient for most purposes, and sometimes even less works well depending on what you're preparing for. What matters more than duration is consistency. Rehearsing regularly in small doses builds stronger neural pathways than one massive session right before the moment arrives. And there's a specific timing detail worth mentioning. Mental rehearsal works best when done shortly before actual performance. The research on memory consolidation and motor learning shows that practicing mentally immediately before physical execution strengthens the connection between your mental image and your body's response far more effectively than rehearsing days in advance. So if you're preparing for something tomorrow, don't wait until right before. Do a focused 15-minute session the night before, then another one about an hour before you go. Let me share what has been my own practice with this over years of working with people who use mental rehearsal extensively. I always end visualization sessions by rehearsing how I'll feel after the event goes well. Not just successful, but relieved, proud, energized. The emotional aftermath matters as much as the performance itself because it reinforces the entire experience in your brain and makes you more likely to seek out similar challenges next time. If you only remember one thing from this, let it be this: mental rehearsal is a skill that gets better with practice. You'll notice that at first, your visualizations might feel flat or distant. That's normal. Your imagination needs training just like any other muscle. After a few weeks of consistent daily practice, even just 10 minutes, you'll find the scenes becoming more vivid and immediate. The difference between early attempts and later ones is often remarkable. A few practical tips I want to leave with you before we wrap up. First, do your mental rehearsal sitting upright or lying comfortably but not so relaxed that you drift into actual sleep. You need enough engagement for it to work effectively. Second, close your eyes if that helps you focus inward, though some people find they can still get strong results while keeping their eyes partially open and looking at a neutral surface. Third, don't force the images, just notice what naturally arises and build from there rather than trying to construct something from scratch. Fourth, be patient with yourself as you learn the skill. It develops gradually like any other competence. And fifth, start small before applying mental rehearsal to your biggest challenges. Practice on smaller events first so you can see it working before trusting it for the really important moments in your life. I'll close by saying something that I think will stick with you more than anything else. The reason people don't use mental rehearsal consistently is because they're afraid of what it might reveal about themselves. When you sit down and truly visualize yourself performing well, you have to be honest about whether or not you actually want that performance enough. And sometimes that's uncomfortable in ways we'd rather avoid. So go ahead, try it tonight before you sleep. Pick one thing coming up tomorrow. 10 minutes of specific mental rehearsal. Not hoping for better results, but actually practicing them. See what happens. You'll be surprised at how much difference this simple practice makes when done consistently over time.